The Israel army has suffered its heaviest casualties in war in half a century. The numbers are staggering, the losses devastating. Over 726 Israeli soldiers have died, more than 4,500 have been injured, and this marks Israel's highest military casualty count since the 1973 Yom Kippur War. But here's the question. What does this tell us about the Israel Defense Forces, the IDF? Not just that, Hezbollah missiles have hit military targets which have the highest degree of protection from Israel's famous Iron Dome. Israel's intelligence failures have been exposed. How did Israel reach this point is the question. And more importantly, why did Israel reach this point? Are the once so-called invincible Israel Defense Forces now showing signs of vulnerability? You see, a year has passed since Hamas launched the surprise attack on Israel, and in response, Israel unleashed a relentless attack campaign on Gaza, declaring an all-out war on Hamas. The goal was to eliminate Hamas. But here we are, a year later, and despite all the military might Israel has brought to bear, Hamas remains very much operational. In fact, its leader, Yahya Sinwar, is reportedly still directing operations. In fact, reports suggesting that Sinwar has even established contact with mediators in Qatar, hinting at a potential ceasefire or hostage exchange. Sinwar is reportedly surrounded by at least 20 hostages with 25 kilograms of dynamite strapped to him, making any strike on him perilous. Remember, Israel is also fighting on multiple fronts, not just against Hamas in Gaza, but against Hezbollah in Lebanon, Iran-backed militias in Iraq and Syria, and even the Houthis in Yemen. The Iron Dome defense system has been considered the crown jewel of Israel's military, but is reportedly showing cracks. Just this week itself, Hezbollah rockets struck the Israeli port city of Haifa. The IDF reportedly later admitted that the Iron Dome had failed to intercept some of these rockets, and while no injuries were reported, Israel's image as a secure, well-defended state is once again under focus, especially after last week's attack by Iran, where reportedly many rockets made their way through the Iron Dome and struck Israel, something that was outrightly denied by Israel. So again, what does this mean for Israel, for the IDF? This brings us back to the core question. How did Israel reach this point? You see, this is not the 1973 Yom Kippur War, where Israel was fighting for its very survival against a coalition of Arab states. Today, Israel finds itself in a protracted conflict. The stakes are still incredibly high, but this time the war does not seem as existential as it once did. In fact, many experts argue that Israel achieved its military objectives in Gaza months ago. So why is this war continuing? What's going on? Some analysts suggest that the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's political ambitions are playing a role. As per experts, Netanyahu, under immense pressure domestically, may be prolonging the conflict to avoid elections, a move that could ultimately cost him his position. Remember, Netanyahu has made it clear that he does not want to negotiate with Hamas, but this is coming at a cost. Israeli soldiers continue to die, and the death toll on the Palestinian side keeps increasing. According to Gaza's health ministry, at least 42,000 Palestinians, mostly women and children, have lost their lives since the war broke out 12 months ago. There seems to be no plan for peace and a perpetual cycle of violence with no resolution in sight. The casualty figures tell only one part of the story. As per reports, the IDF has stated that the 726 Israeli casualties are just the names they have been permitted to release, raising questions over whether the actual death toll is actually likely to be higher. And what does that mean for the morale of the Israeli soldiers and citizens who are undoubtedly questioning the price they are paying for this conflict? As Israel continues to face threats from just about every corner, Hezbollah, for instance, reportedly targeted the IDF's Gilot military base near Tel Aviv, home to the IDF Signals Intelligence Unit 8200 and adjacent to Mossad headquarters. Hezbollah's rockets reportedly struck dangerously close to the Mossad headquarters, underscoring just how exposed Israel has become to its enemies. It is clear that Israel is at a critical juncture. Each day, the fear of the escalation into a broader regional war looms large, and at this point, peace seems distant, pretty distant, especially when Netanyahu's refusal to engage in negotiations keeps the door firmly shut on any diplomatic resolution. As the crisis continues to unfold, one thing is certain: Israel can no longer rely on its past reputation as an invincible force in West Asia. Its intelligence failures, its penetrable military defenses, and its precarious political situation, all pointing to a country grappling with challenges it has not faced in decades. Israel, you see, stands at a crucial juncture. And if it does not find a way to bring this conflict to a close, the costs, both human and political, will only continue to mount. Let's now shift our focus to Ukraine. They say that Russian missiles struck 2 Black Sea grain ships on Monday. According to Ukrainian officials, a Russian missile hit a Palau-flagged vessel in Ukraine's southern port of Odessa, killing a Ukrainian national and injuring 5 crew members. The Ukrainian foreign minister, in fact, has said that the 2 ships were damaged in the Black Sea grain export hub without giving details on the ship's conditions. He condemned Russia's actions. This is the second such attack in as many days. And here's why this incident is particularly significant. While missile attacks during wartime are not new, Ukraine is seemingly blaming Russia for targeting the grain ships. This is about a war against resources. You see, Ukraine has called the Russian strike on the grain ship in Odessa as, quote-unquote, a deliberate terrorist tactic. And here's why. Ukraine, one of the world's leading grain producers and exporters, has been shipping about 4 million tons of grain each month through the Black Sea corridor. This was set up through a deal mediated by Turkey and the United Nations. The Russian leadership denies that its forces have targeted the civilian infrastructure of Ukrainian cities, villages and ports during the war, but Russia has been accused of destroying schools, businesses, and Ukrainian energy and water supply facilities. The missile on Ukrainian grain ship on Monday came a day after missiles hit Odessa city, causing damages but no apparent injuries. Ukraine's Restoration Ministry identified the ship attacked on Sunday as the St. Kitts and Nevis flagged Peresa, which had a cargo of 6,000 tons of corn. In a Facebook post, the Ukrainian official said the Peresa's 15-member crew of Syrian and Egyptian nationals was not injured. The ministry said the Peresa was the 20th civilian vessel to be damaged by Russian attacks. Last month, the St. Kitts and Nevis flagged bulk carrier Aya was hit by a Russian missile in the Black Sea. Another vessel, an Antigua flagged carrier, was damaged in a Russian missile strike in Odessa. You see, Russia has struck the port repeatedly in the war since its full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. Responding to the attack on Ukraine's grain ship, Ukraine's Deputy Prime Minister has identified the vessel as the Optima and said it arrived in Odessa hours before it was attacked. He said, and I'm quoting, "Russia is attempting in this way to destroy shipping in the Black Sea, guaranteeing food security. The consequences can only mean greater instability in sensitive regions dependent on food imports and tension in international relations." Like we said, this is a battle for trillions in resources. Separately, Ukraine's military intelligence agency has said that a Ukrainian sabotage operation had damaged a Russian mine-sweeping ship in Russia's Kaliningrad region. Kiev said that its action put the Russian ship out of action. This is the third year of the Russia-Ukraine war. If 2022 was about military aggression and territory grab, 2023 was waiting for Ukraine to shift the front line. 2024 started with Ukraine very much on the back foot. What should have been a year of compromise and peacemaking supported by the West has become about dragging out the pain and suffering in Ukraine for as long as possible. Sure, neither Ukraine nor Russia are ready to compromise, but the fall of strategically important city of Avdiivka early this year, combined with the under-delivery of Western weapons to Ukraine and the civil-military friction in Ukraine, has all cast doubts on the future of Ukraine. And Russia has taken advantage of this. Ukraine has become a war of attrition. Russia's strategy, as they say, is a hen pecks grain by grain. Here's what we mean by that. Amid the war in Ukraine, Russia has started spending around 7.5% of its GDP on defense and security. And in comparison, only 11 NATO members spent more than 2% last year on its defense and security. And as a result, we're seeing how Ukraine is heavily outgunned and faces growing pressure on the battlefield. As for Ukraine's allies, the war triggered energy crisis in Europe, but it's not just Europe. Blockades of Ukrainian grain exports have worsened hunger in some of the world's most vulnerable areas. As Russia withdrew from the Black Sea Grain Initiative, which had allowed some shipments to resume, global food security is in even greater danger. Analysts say that the big prize eyed by Russia is Ukraine energy, mineral and agricultural assets. Russia's stated war goal of conquering Ukraine's eastern regions and southern shores is not coincidental. These regions, which include Ukraine's section of the Black Sea and now mainly controlled by Russia, account for Ukraine's oil, gas, coal and reserves, the bulk of Ukraine's critical minerals, especially the rare earth metals that are now in high demand and likewise found in Donetsk. And what's more, a number of crucial agricultural crops feeding global markets, including wheat, corn, barley, sunflower oil, are harvested in eastern and southeastern Ukraine. The war has not only disrupted the production of these resources, it has also shut down the supply of vital inputs, making future investment rather uncertain. And that's why we say the battle is now for control of these resources. You see, a rapid defeat for Ukraine in the first days of the war would have been embarrassing for the West. But a slow defeat, despite endless declarations of support for Kiev, would be a catastrophic defeat for the West. And now, more than ever, the stakes in the Ukraine war are high. No one should doubt that. Shifting focus now, today the Russian and Chinese Navy warships practiced anti-submarine missions in the northwestern Pacific Ocean as part of a joint patrol in the Asia-Pacific region. Take a look.